So very welcome to this seminar called is Career Guidance in Europe Ready. I will leave the word to Daniel Hailemariam, who is here, so you can present yourself before you start.
Okay, good morning or good afternoon, whatever. Good morning. My name is Daniel Hailemariam. And where do I come from? Actually, I'm a bit confused. I come from Sweden, but originally from Ethiopia and East Africa. And I've been in Sweden for the past 30 plus years. And I've been working in the field of career guidance. And I'm so happy to be here. And the topic really I have to cover today is career guidance in Europe ready? Are we ready? Are we ready? The background for this topic is in the Swedish context, around 2014, 15, 16, we had a huge amount of refugees coming from different countries. And that wave of immigrants raised this question: was Sweden ready for about 160,000 refugees within a period of 2 or 3 months? And those individuals who came, in 20,000, 15, 16, they have already entered the school system. And is the school system ready for these immigrants? And in many cases, the answer has been no. And that's the question which we're trying to address today. And I think I introduced my name, but not what I work with. I teach at the University of Stockholm for the program for career guidance. It's a 3-year program we have over there. And I also work as a career guide myself in schools, especially mainly independent schools. So my background is career counseling, and I'll try to share some thoughts with you. Do I have any clock inside here? No. Okay, so when I think of competence development for career guidance, I think of some areas. We're not going to cover all these areas, but I just want to share the how to systemize some of these. So we talk about evaluation. We can talk about availability. This is focused on routines. We can talk about the routines around staff meetings, how we document, and how we make decisions within the workforce. So this can be one area of emphasis when we talk about competence development. Then we have the content-focused competence development, and that could be focused on areas of responsibility, the mandate the career guidance official has, and the methods we use to reach those different responsibilities. And then we can talk about professional-focused development. That's where we're going to focus today. And that could be about the attitude, the personal approach, communication, skills, and job design or redesign role, and team building and so on. That's mainly focused on the professional part of the individual. And we can also talk about structure-focused, the organization, how we document, how we spend, and leadership. And then the client and service-focused areas. So all these areas are related to the career, to the competence development of a career guidance. These are all the areas which we are involved in one or other way. But for today, we're just going to focus on this portion here when we talk about the development of the individual, the professional development. That's what we're going to discuss. So my question is career guidance ready? Are we ready? Are we ready to in the change of demographics? Because there is tremendous change of demographics in Europe. And of course, in individual countries, we have an aging population, rising immigration, and low birth rate. Is Europe ready for this? Is Europe ready for diversity? So moving from uniformity, moving from one size fits all to the diverse population, to the diverse type of educational backgrounds. Is Europe ready for multiculturalism? Because we've moved, for a long time ago, we've moved away from what we call monoculturalism. Is Europe ready for interculturalism? And we're going to talk about this word a bit later. Have we moved away from monoculturalism, and are we in the field of interculturalism? Are we ready for relativism instead of absolutes? Instead of more objective, are we ready for people's subjective ideas or experiences or backgrounds? Are we ready for a variety of norms, values, and cultures? Have we moved away from the normal way of doing career guidance? Are we open for all the norms and values which individuals or immigrants bring to our countries? And are we ready for the norm critical way of working? We do have our normal way of doing things, but are we ready to be norm critical, to be critical towards our own methods for the benefit of the diversity which we have, diversity of students, family background, education background, experience background, and so on. So these are the questions which I want to ask. And if your answer is yes, we're ready, then I wish you all the best. If your answer is, yeah, I'm not sure, so I hope you can make use of these thoughts and go home and maybe discuss them with your colleagues and implement them in ways you find fit. So I have no answers today, because I have the privilege of just asking questions, and then the answers I leave to you. So I find these pictures very interesting. Here we have people who got the same type of help, but with not the best effect, right? So the intention was good. The intention was good that, we give the same to everyone. But the intended result has not been reached. So after doing career counseling for some time, we realized that this doesn't work, so we go to the next method. This works better, because now we've been looking into the individual capacities, not only doing the same thing for everyone, but we've been taking into consideration the individual's capacities and experience and possibilities of this person doesn't need that much assistance. And of course, the third one is even much better, which I also hope that once we get away from here, we'll also be somehow reflecting on the structures which we have created. Now, we don't really work on so much assisting these individuals, but we work on removing that which has been a kind of a hinder. There are some structures which are excluding. They exclude people from benefiting from all kinds of good intentions, good jobs we do. There are structures that are limiting. There are norms that limit people from actually achieving what we want them to achieve, which is enjoying work life or study life. So yes, we need to begin somewhere, and this is a good beginning, but it's not optimal in the long run. So we need to somehow customize our efforts based on the individual situation, and then of course move on and to somehow attack systems that exclude people from benefiting from whatever we want them to benefit from. So keep this in mind and kind of place yourself. Where are you? Where's your organization or your institution on this scale? Is it one size fits all? Or is it, we have a variety of norms, a variety of methods to address the variety of population? Or is it even better, are you working towards attacking the systems which are not that, which were good at some point, some time ago, they were relevant when we had a kind of monocultural society, but maybe for the population now we need to work to remove those structures. So let's begin from the beginning, and this I'm sure you will recognize. Well-informed career guidance is about what? If I ask you, okay? It's about self-awareness. And this is from the 1900s. Frank Parson is the one who gave us these thoughts. So career guidance, well-informed career guidance is about self-awareness. It's about being aware of the opportunities and the options out there. And it's also planning to make decisions based on the connection between 1 and 2. And the final step is carrying out those plans. So this is, in a nutshell, what career guidance is all about. But something we need to remember is that all of these are context sensitive. Context sensitive. Context in a sense of culture sensitive, gender sensitive, value sensitive. So a person from Sweden and a person from Ethiopia, yes, they do have a different self-awareness, but how that self-awareness is created is also different. How it's brought about is different. It's so much context sensitive. Therefore, we need to somehow reorganize how we do these things. These are the steps. And we do have some methods for the majority population. But what I'm suggesting to you today is that even though we follow these steps, we need to question ourselves, which methods do we use to reach the also minorities in our societies. And career guidance as a concept, as a phenomena, is a very much Western concept based on Western ways of thinking and based on Western ways of reasoning about career and about life. And this, again, is a kind of one-size-fits-all. Career guidance is a response to the industrialization, urbanization back in the mid-1900s. And of course, when women entered the workforce, then there was a need to help people, young people, adults to find their ways in the areas, in the different professions. And career guidance is influenced to a large extent by culture and how problems are defined, how solutions are found, and the counseling process, which is very, very much context-based.
I'm sorry, there are so many chat. I just wanted quickly to see what the chat is saying before,
Okay.
if there is a problem with the sound.
Okay.
Sorry.
Oh, many people have some problems.
It seems to be problems with the sound.
Is it the sound? Can you hear me?
What is it that is fuzzy? The slides are a bit fuzzy, okay.
And then there is an answer from the organizer.
Sound is okay.
Sound is okay.
Maybe we can stop sharing the presentation and reset the presentation.
Can you do it?
Yeah, we can try.
Because there are 50 people online, so I want them to be able to see
Is it better now?
Yeah,
Okay.
You have to push share again. It is not a big problem if you want to continue with it.
That,
And
no,
you
no.
have to push share.
sorry. Yeah, but we share the presentation, not the screen for now.
How is it now? Can you see now?
It's not a big problem if you want to continue, so okay, let's,
It is shared. The screen is shared. Can you see the?
it's the same, they say.
It's the same. Okay. I will send the presentation to the organizers. Okay. What happened now? This one?
I think it's again every time.
Now it's good. Okay. And,
Much better, they say. I know. Much better.
okay. I think we fixed it. I think so. That,
okay now.
it's okay now. Yeah. Vad är klockan?
Det är 23. Och du kan hålla på till 1:50.
And career guidance, as we know it, it presupposes that the individual is active in the counseling session. So it's more focused on counseling as opposed to giving advice. And most of our individuals, clients from various cultures, they emphasize so much advice and not so much counseling. So there's a difference there. And of course, career guidance presupposes good knowledge of the workforce, the type of sectors, the education system, and so on. So this is the way we know career guidance in the Western context. And again, when we talk about individuals from various other cultures, this is quite something new for them. I mean, career guidance as profession doesn't exist in most, what shall I say, in African countries or even some Asian countries and so on. So that also has to be set in a certain context. So what I'm going to just try to emphasize now is the norm and normality aspect of our career counseling. Norms, someone said, no matter how similar we are, there will always be differences. And no matter how different we are, there will always be similarities. So This I want us to remember, even though I'll be talking about the differences that we do share. There are some differences which we have as individuals, as human beings, and especially when we talk about people from different cultures based on values, mentality, culture. There are differences which we need to be aware of. Norms. Norm is a Latin word. Two straight lines, parallel lines, and we've started to use this mathematic terminology in the areas of ethics and moral and life situations where we say norm is something which is typical, average, healthy, usual. This is what we associate the word norm with. So something normal is very positive. And norm is how things should be done or should not be done. We have a set of ideas, set of thoughts, how things should be done. And of course, norms, they keep us sane. They keep us somehow safe on the main lane. So nothing negative about functioning from our norms. Norms also are we're more aware of them when we don't stick to them. Norm is about being like everyone else. And it's created by and formulated by interaction between people, social agreements, and mainly noticed when we divert away from norm. So it's noticed when we don't do according to the norm. Otherwise, it's nothing which we really think about. If we stand in line to get our coffee, that's normal. But we realize that something is abnormal when I break the line and just go in front of everybody else. Then you notice that something strange is taking place. Otherwise, if everyone does as he or should do, we don't really react towards that so much. And these norms, all of us function based on our norms. You function out of your normality and the way I do. And that keeps us human, that keeps us sane, no problem. The problem is when your normality and my normality meet in a counseling session. That will be the challenge. And in many cases, it can be a very interesting challenge, interesting journey. And we have several types of normalities. This one is the universal normality. That's related to what we do, what we share with all humanity. All of us, we eat, we laugh, we greet one another, we celebrate, we communicate, and we even dance. Don't we? That's what we share with all humanity. What we do as the basic line is what makes us human altogether. But the next one is more of a collective normal, is not so much what we do, but how we do the above. So that's shared with the context, the culture I come from, the society I come from, the family I come from. That's more context-based. Yes, we dance also in Ethiopia, but not the way you dance. Yes, we do have music, as you do, but not the same type of music. And I'll show you the food we eat in a minute. And I hope you'll be tempted to eat the food I eat. And then we have the individual normal, which is the unique way we do number one and number two. The unique way, the individual way. And then we have the institutional normal, which is routines, structures, how we carry out our services. And these two parts, the first and the second one, that's more related to the individual, our background, our culture, our history, and so on. Whereas number 3 and number 4, at least number 4, is something which you need to be mindful about in your organization, in your job. Are there normalities which are which exclude people from accepting your service? Or is your normality at the institution level, is it inclusive? Because all these things, they can be in a sense exclusive. Maybe if you come to a kind of a, let's say, an Ethiopian wedding, you might find yourself excluded because, we do things the way we've been taught in the collective, and that's no problem in a social setting. But in this institutional setting, we need to be norm critical to ask ourselves, are our normalities excluding people, or are they inclusive? That's the question we have to ask ourselves. Norms, as good as they are, they also have limitations. So norms, they create possibilities. They make it easier for us to interact in social context, that we don't collide with one another, that we can be inclusive. So norms, the good side of it, they create possibilities. But if we're not mindful about our normalities, they can be limiting factors, which means that it limits people from their room of action, makes us insecure, and can make us feel left out. So if someone comes into this room now, because we've created this kind of our normal space within these minutes, if someone comes in, how we treat this person, how we greet this person, can affect whether he will feel included or excluded from this group. And it's actually our responsibility to somehow make this person feel like, that the person is included in our midst. So when we come to a kind of counseling session, guidance session, here is your normality as a carrier guidance, and here is the individual's normality. Guidance is a given matter. As we said, it's based on Western ways of thinking. And for the individual can say, what is guidance? They don't know what their role is. So even just on this level, there's a kind of a conflict. And it's this individual's job to somehow introduce what guidance is and how guidance can assist the person and what the individual's role is in the guidance session. Here we ask questions and we take for granted that the individual is the expert of his life in counseling, in guidance, whereas the individual wants answers because the individual sees the counselor as the expert. You tell me what I should do. I'm sure you've gotten this this question. What do you think I should do? Right? Because you're the expert. Yeah, the career guidance, they want to guide and explore, whereas on this one, they want advice. Here we work on eye contact and we shake hands. Here some avoid eye contact and greet in different ways. And this is actually out of respect. So some think it's disrespect, but it's not. They avoid eye contact because staring into you can be felt as if they're intimidating you. Decisions are made by the individual, whereas people from many other cultures, decisions are made in the group. Power balance is we want to make it quite equal. There is a kind of a proximity, closeness, whereas there is a power distance between you and the individual, the client. Here we talk about, dream job, identity and so on, whereas here maybe the main focus on bread job, income job, because identity is formed by other means. And here what is said is important. because the fact, the information is important, but in many cultures, who says it is much more important than what is said. And here we focus on gender roles as being equality, whereas many cultures, gender roles are very much traditional. So these are two different normalities. And I'm not in any way going to say one is better than the other. But the differences will be so much, vivid or important in a counseling session. When we come from two different normalities, we need to use those few minutes, that session, to create a kind of a common ground to continue the counseling session on. So at the end of the day, you might actually find two disappointed individuals in a counseling session because both of them have been functioning out of their normality and thereof the disappointment. We can also look at it in the communication process. You have a sender and a receiver sending message to one another, and the sender codes the message. There's a coding based on the individual's normality or gender or age or culture or whatever, and then the receiver also interprets the message which he or she gets, and both of them function out of their normality. And in this case, the receiver has the responsibility to double check if the understanding he or she got is as was intended. Because we cannot just assume that these two individuals understand each other, because there are too many filters once the message leaves the sender. There are too many filters which they need to really this individual needs to double check if there's a common understanding there. Here's what I said about normality. The picture on your left-hand side is the Ethiopian food. Anyone tasted Ethiopian food? Wow. Okay, and those of you who haven't, you're invited to my kitchen in Sweden. Both of them are food. People eating food. That's normal. That's universal. Everyone eats. But the type of food and the way they eat food, here they use their hands. Here they use one big plate and several people around this big plate, whereas here you have fork and knives and individual plates. And we cannot say one is better than the other, because that's actually missing the point. We just say that both of them eat, but they eat in different ways. That's what we're talking when we talk about normality. So normality on the universal level, that makes us human. But when we come to the individual level and to the context level, that's where the differences begin. So to avoid being affected by our norms too much, we need to think about both interculturalism and to be kind of a norm critical. Norm critical gives us tool to challenge our norms, especially those that create limitations. It helps us to find out which norms we need to counterfight and which norms we need to maybe explain more. We need to explain them more to reinforce them. And being norm critical helps us to focus on the norm and not so much on the individual, which is affected by our norms. Sometimes we think that the individual needs to change. But I think in many ways we need to question our own norms. Maybe our norms need to be somehow explained or changed. Being norm critical helps us to ask the question, who has the power in this setting? Being norm critical contributes to increased inclusion Do our norms exclude? Do our normalities exclude people from what shall I say, from benefiting from our services? And norms, being norm critical, can be developed by, what we're doing today: education, further education, competence development, and most of all, interaction. Go to an Ethiopian restaurant, go to an Afghanistan wedding, be where, where culture happens, interact with people. I'm rushing because of time. And another area of questioning actually our normality is we've been moving from this kind of Europe, kind of a monocultural Europe, where only one culture dominates. We become multicultural, where cultures coexist side by side. And multiculturalism, in a sense, addresses the difficulties caused by several cultures being, in the same country. At least in the Swedish curriculum, we're told to countering the restrictions, countering exclusion based on multiculturalism. So this is more of a passive way of dealing with culture. It's just kind of acknowledging that there are several cultures in the same country and we need to somehow avoid problems. And that's not good enough at this point. The next level is interculturalism, which means culture exchange of experiences. It's the mutual influence. We work with inclusion. We build on mutual understanding. And we are enriched by the diversity. So even your business, your organization will be influenced by the existence of several cultures. And the question is, what will be next? Because culture or multiculturalism is here to stay. So this is behind us, the monoculturalism mindset. This is where we are in many political terminology or political documents. We're very much in the multiculturalism phase, whereas we need to move on to this one to include people, to be inclusive, kind of a intercultural mindset. And maybe you can ask yourself, how intercultural is your organization in the methods they use, in the organization, the structure, and so on. Interculturalism, we see each other as resources, not as problems. Everyone should feel included. Interculturalism promotes a culture of dialogue, give and take. It allows self to be influenced by diversity. So I'm not the only one impacting on other people, but other people also impact on me. That's the idea of interculturalism. We counteract power structure that stifle dialogue and learning. We create arenas for understanding and collaboration. So we create these meeting settings, just what we're doing now, in a sense. And maybe that can also be organized in your context, in your country. And we also emphasize the importance of culture interpreters. It could be language-wise, those who can several languages, that the staff is somehow encouraged to use former students or people from the client's groups coming to assist and coming to work with the guidance. And also interculturalism is about developing a critical approach towards our own norms and prejudices, because we need to work with ourselves in many cases. Yeah. John Dewey said many years ago, we don't learn from experience, We learn from reflecting on experience. And my challenge to you is reflection in action and reflection on action. Now, reflection in action is as you sit in your counseling session with your, with your individual in front of you, make your counseling session based on reflection. Reflect what you're doing, why you're doing what you're doing. That's kind of just reflecting as you do your job, as you have that session. It might be difficult, I don't know, but reflection on action is what you do after this session. Afterwards, together, mainly with yourself, but together maybe with another colleague, reflecting on what just took place, what you did, what happened. That can help us. We reflect on both levels, in action and even afterwards reflecting on action. I've come to the end, and I just want to give you a few minutes. How would you summarize this presentation? What are the key thoughts which you somehow take with you? And how many minutes do we have, Nina?
Well, actually, we have about 5 minutes left, but I guess we can take a few more.
Okay. Yeah. Nina's kind today. So, yeah, just reflect with the one sitting next to you. How would you summarize this presentation? I give you 2-3 minutes, and then we'll just hear some of your thoughts. Challenging.
And very effective also, very effective.
Effective and challenging.
Väldigt inspirerande. Mycket inspirerande.
Tack. Okay. Can we hear just some thoughts, some words you want to throw out? How would you summarize? Impressive.
And also we just talked about like a lot of the times, a lot of conferences I went to was because I'm working with the students who are going to study abroad, but also with their career, academic. Sorry, I didn't speak English for so long in front of some other people, so I'm just So I really like reinsurance about you need to really work in it's not just about how many minutes, what you are supposed to talk about, and the reflection and the end, it was just very inspiring for me. And every insurance, you really need to work with the like a human touch.
Working with a human touch. Thank you. Thank you. Yes? Anybody else? Yes. Wait, let me just bring this up to you.
Thank you. We had a very interesting conversation in our little group, and we were reflecting on the next step. What is next, you know? And maybe the next step is also informed on how reflective we are on the present. And the next step will look different for everyone, depending on your own experience. Of course, you can reflect this in a guidance situation, but also in your daily life. You know, there are always differences, encounters. So a lot of food for thought. Thank you very much.
Okay, the next step. Yeah.
Thank you. My name is Georgi Stankovsky. I come from Your Guidance Center, North Macedonia. First of all, I would like to thank you for this amazing presentation. It was very inspiring. But in my personal opinion and what we discussed, yes, this is a national agency or Your Guidance Center. We're working on these values. But if we want to see if the career guidance in Europe is ready, first of all, I think that we need to start from the bottom, individually by country, because every country has its own problems with the career guidance. For example, in North Macedonia, it's not a profession. It's stuck in the parliament, they're not voting it, it's going again, it's a turn for discussion. That's why I think that we need to go regionally first to see what is the regional problem of the country, then the country's problem, and then all the countries to develop the standards for the career guidance.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
I'm Corinne Lamontagne from French-speaking Euro Guidance Center in Belgium. And I also work in a place called the Cité des Métiers. It's a French concept. And in the Cité des Métiers, we are several partners working there. So reflecting in the action and on the action is a very speakful to me, and really because we, as several partners are there, we also have our own institutional culture. But when we arrive in the Cité des Métiers, we must leave that culture to adopt a same kind of approach in guidance. And it's a very interesting suggestion that you do, that we reflect in action and on the action. Also, when I am with someone, my norm is not the norm of the other one. What can we do to get an acceptable common norm? That's my question to think about.
Thank you. More questions to think about. Okay. Okay, Nina.
So thank you very much, Daniel.